everyone. Welcome to the Trailblazer 2.0 webinar on Breaking Bad Progressive Leadership. And I must highlight that today is International Women's Day. So what a day to be hosting such a topical and timely webinar. And today we are going to hear from hotel and leadership visionaries about team engagement, recruitment opportunities, what's driving change in hospitality, and how best to lead through it. So the full Trailblazer series is a precursor to the Urban Living Festival, which is an event that we are holding this summer at Tobacco Dock in London on July the 7th and the 8th. And the event has been pulled together in response to how the different asset classes within hospitality and real estate are converging. And you can read more about the Urban Living Festival on the website, which is being posted into the chat. Some housekeeping rules before we begin. We are going to be spending around 45 minutes chatting with our Trailblazers, and we will take some questions from the audience towards the end. So please do pop these into the Q&A. I encourage you all to interact with us, and I will get round to asking these right at the very end. And the webinar is being recorded. Everyone that has registered will receive a copy of this recording within a couple of days, so rest assured you will not miss out. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Eloise Hanson. I'm the news editor at Boutique Hotel News. We're an online B2B multimedia platform publishing news, comment and opinion from across the boutique, lifestyle and luxury hotel sectors. The site is published by International Hospitality Media, host of the Urban Living Festival, and we also run two other websites at Service Department News and Short-Term Rentals. These are our fantastic Trailblazers today, and I am going to hand over to each to very briefly introduce themselves before we get started in our conversation. And I'm going to move from left to right on my screen. So Sally, can I please start with you? Sally, we might have you on mute here.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Hi, I'm Sally Beck, General Manager of the Royal Lancaster London and founder of the Hoteliers Charter that's just been launched actually in February. So nice to see everyone.
Thank you, Sally. And Chetan, I'm coming to you next, please.
Hi, Louise. Thank you for having me today. My name is Chetan Bhanot, and I manage the Mandeville Hotel, which is a quirky and yet elegant boutique hotel located in Marylebone, and is perfect for business and leisure travelers alike. I also manage Penley Manor, which is located in Tring, Hertfordshire, with plenty of space and a welcome escape in its 35-acre setting. And I'm really excited to be here and to be part of this webinar.
Thanks, Chetan. And Robert, I'm coming to you next, please.
Hi, Eloise. I'm Robert Richardson. I'm the General Manager of the Cape Hotel and Golf Resort, which is a brand new boutique hotel situated in Kent. And I'm also the Vice Chairman of the Institute of Hospitality, which is the professional body for people working or studying in our industry.
Thanks, Robert. And Patrick, coming to you next, please.
Thanks, Eloise. Pleasure to be here. I'm Patrick Michaels, founder and CEO of Represent, which is a global representation firm. And I'm also partner brand ambassador of Next 90 Days, which is a C-suite management transformation firm. And I'm here on behalf of one of my top clients, AKA.
Thanks, Patrick. And last but not least, Sean.
Hi, Eloise. Thank you. It's great to be on your show today. I have the pleasure of doing a couple of things in my life right now, which is T5 Strategies, which is a business architecture and transformation company, and equally the Adapters, which is the digital arm of the Adapters book that we just published. And we capture the stories of those that are gutsy genius thinkers, innovators, and adapters.
Thank you. And thank you all. So if you haven't joined one of my webinars before, I always like to offer some context to our upcoming conversation. And as Sean mentioned, you can see his book, The Adapters, in the bottom right-hand corner. And we are going to be hearing from Sean later today about some key takeaways and lessons learned from interviewing many hospitality leaders within this book. And on this slide, as Sally mentioned, we also have the launch of the Hoteliers Charter, which has been designed to promote the sector as a career of choice. Now, back when Brexit was our biggest concern, there was a real uproar about hospitality being described as a low-skilled and low-paid industry. So we are going to be hearing more from Sally later about the Charter. And on this slide, we also have the Mandeville Hotel, which during the first lockdown positioned itself as a pillar of the community and offered concierge services to those that needed it in the Marylebone area. And of course, we have Chetan here today, who's been busy overseeing this hotel and its sister property, Pendley Manor in Hertfordshire. So we have a lot to learn from our Trailblazers. And before we get started, on the next slide, we have some stories that I've published within the last several months. And again, we have a couple of stories at the bottom here where independent hotels have gathered their teams together, one for a refurbishment of a property and one to operate a drive-through for key workers. We also have some saddening news, such as the Standard in Hollywood closing after 22 years of trading. And hotels really have suffered during the pandemic, and closures like this represent not only a loss of jobs, but the loss of a culture. And in tune with International Women's Day, there was a piece published by The Times about how COVID has set women back. And I just want to highlight some statistics that were mentioned in this article. It read 140,000 more women than men are on furlough. That's a total of 232 million women. And Felicia Willow, who's the chief executive of Fawcett Society, said in this article, "The fear is that if the same approach is taken to redundancy decisions as has been taken to furlough, it is going to be women who bear the brunt of that. And women have been more represented in industries that have been most impacted by the virus, retail and hospitality." So it's been a tough one on everyone. And when events like this happen, morale can sink. And we have a feature in the top right-hand corner there, all about hospitality's strained mental health. However, I want to end on an upbeat note and highlight some positive news from the Office for National Statistics. And in one of the last weeks of February, I believe it was between the 24th and the 28th of February, there's been an improvement in happiness levels, an improvement in life satisfaction, and anxiety levels have decreased within Great Britain. So times are gradually getting better, we're on the mend, and I think this is a great point to kick off our conversation about progressive leadership. So I am coming to Chetan first with my first question today, highlighting, obviously you have talked about managing two properties. You've got the Mandeville and Pendley Manor. So how have your responsibilities as a leader developed over the past year?
So, as with everybody, it has been the most challenging times for everyone. At the same time, it is interesting to see how we all have adapted to the changes and how far we have come in the past 1 year. It has been a wake-up call in so many ways, and you just mentioned the positive news about things improving. So you can see that things are on the mend and things are getting better. As general managers and leaders, we have been taught to be proactive, understand what is happening in the market, look at the macroeconomic factors and try to stay a step ahead, always looking and planning for the next 6 to 12 months. But in the past 1 year, because of unprecedented macroeconomic factors, most of the times I have been reactive. We have been told by the government when to close, when and how we can open along with all the restrictions and guidelines. And every time that happened, we had to react and react swiftly because the time period was very short for us to so many times the decisions we took did not have the required outcome because the situation was changing. The situation was already difficult. It became even more difficult because of the failures. The things were changing so quickly and no 2 days were alike. All leaders and teams, we normally feed off our successes, which were negligible in the past 1 year. And then we had the financial challenges, which made the situation worse. What I learned was sometimes you have to accept the situation as you can't do anything about it. You try to live in present and give you 100% and try not to plan too far ahead. The situation did help us improve our reactive skills, and we put procedures and processes in place to ensure we react swiftly to all sudden changes, opening and closing checklists for each department, having a task force, training the teams as per the new normal. And what was fascinating was that the team reacted really, really well. They took on the new norm very well. Also, what I learned is that it is important not to be overcritical about yourself, which as leaders we can be. A lot of decisions you will take during such situations will not have the desired outcome, as most of the decisions are based on very little information and very high unpredictability factor. I kept telling myself it is what it is, and like other challenging times, this too shall pass. We are so used to quick successes, but what I learned was patience and resilience, which is very, very important. Sometimes you cannot have immediate success and you actually don't know when will the success come, but you just need to be resilient. The other learning is that as a leader, we are trained to aspire for success and keep working towards success. Because of this desire to succeed and lack of any success in such crisis, we as leaders try to do things to compensate for the lack of success. And in an effort to deal with the fact that we cannot do anything, we try to take actions or do things which are not necessary. But we do it for our own professional satisfaction because we're not getting any success. For a feeling that we did something and these actions, but what it does actually is it puts unnecessary pressure on the team members who are already going through a lot. And these actions actually do not get you anywhere, but can lead to further disappointment. After realizing it very quickly, I focused on the importance of being reactive and formed a task force for swift action to all the changes and stop putting unnecessary pressure on the team. Instead, I focused on looking after the team, helped them deal with the crisis, stayed in constant touch with them, sharing positive stories and information and articles on well-being. We also stayed in constant touch with our guests and asked them for their needs to ensure we meet their needs, which is the key. And also what was fascinating was there were a lot of positive stories being shared by the team members, which kept everybody going. Sharing jokes on WhatsApp helped as well. So we became much closer we would otherwise, because during busy operation time, you're focusing just on work and getting things done, and it's a busy hotel. But this gave us an opportunity to connect even more. We also learned the importance of celebrating every little success, whether it's personal or professional. As in the past, we have always overlooked small successes while chasing the big ones. The importance of spending time with people in person, looking after the team members and their mental well-being is and will be a strong focus for me from now. This pause also helped us to get even closer to our local community and our guests. As you mentioned, what we did during the lockdown, we connected with the local community by offering grocery, pharmacy pickups, Then we were donating weekly wellbeing boxes to Westminster St. Mary's Hospital. And it brought a lot of joy to us by doing that. It has brought us really close to our local community. We have, during this time, we have also stayed in touch with most of our guests through emails or newsletters or phone calls. And that has brought us, we feel that they're part of the family now, because, you know, we've checked on them, how they're doing during these times. Also, we have developed a contingency plan for cash flow and financing for such crisis, and we are still working on it just to make sure that if anything like this happens, we are better prepared. We've also looked at our contracts, existing contracts. We're working on changing the contracts with our suppliers and partners, so that, you know, we always have such situation or such crisis in mind when we're doing new contracts. And I'm confident we will come out of this crisis much stronger, which we can already see, and with a lot more self-belief in our resilience, and with all the positive developments and the vaccination drive which is happening, things are already looking great, and we will have an amazing summer.
Yeah, the rollout of the vaccine is definitely restoring that confidence. And I loved what you said about taking pride in the small successes. I mean, in a busy day-to-day, be it managing a hotel, looking after a team, it can be hard to, sometimes you forget about this, or you know, you neglect the smaller things because you're chasing the dream, they say. And Sally, I'd like to come to you next, please. You've had a long vision for the Hoteliers Charter, and it's now launched. So can you please give us an overview of the Charter?
Mm-hmm. Certainly. Charter's basically got 10 core commitments that I believe hoteliers do as a matter of course. The first 4 are, to my mind, really important. That we commit to developing team members through training, apprenticeships, coaching, mentoring, positioning a hotel role as a career, not just a job. And I think that's somewhat different to general restaurants and bars and general hospitality. That we all support the hospitality commitment, which is a cracking one-pager put together by People First and Sean Wheeler. And that's about work-life balance. I mean, in hotels, we offer 24/7 working. And it's about making sure that rotas are done well, that, you know, balance is had, that, you know, people's, you know, total life is considered, which is important. We all support the ambition to end low pay. That's commitment level 3. You know, we do have people on minimum wage in our businesses, but generally we tend to promote and develop quite quickly, and that they move through with their careers. There's no sort of barrier in keeping people in a pigeonhole position, which I think is quite important. And we strive to work with the Low Pay Commission to continue developing that. And another one which I think is really key is having a fair and transparent service charge. Whether it's a trunk gratuity system that's fair and transparent. So there's 10 commitments all about equality, diversity, a nourishing workplace, charitable working within the community, much of what Chetan's doing. And it's a way that I believe hoteliers function anyway, and that we should lift ourselves up as careers of choice within hospitality. So Karen.
No, please, you carry on. We're here to listen from you.
Well, we launched in February, which was a year late, basically because of COVID. The initial drive was to try and get more young people and employment from Britain as a whole, particularly with Brexit looming. And at the time, the industry needed 700,000 people just to stand still. So, you know, there's a big concern over Brexit happening and not being able to recruit, you know, our very valued European partners into our industry. But obviously with COVID coming, that sort of changed the dynamic somewhat. But I have to say, I think more than ever, we need to shout about how great careers are within hotels and hospitality. We've taken a huge bashing this last year, and we need to rebalance that. I think across Europe, there's people that are very proud to have a career in hotels and hospitality for life. And that's not quite the same in the UK. You know, I'm a publican's daughter from Scunthorpe, and I'm running one of the best hotels in London. I didn't go to university. I trained through. If you like people, you're committed, you've got a good attitude. The world is your oyster within our industry, and you can travel anywhere and take all of your skills with you. But we don't talk about that. We don't talk about it. And there's, you know, it's important that employers, educators, parents, you know, schools, colleges, universities actually recognise our industry as a cracking career choice and not as a second-rate filler. And the Charter is one way of addressing that I think is really important.
You touched on something just then, Sally, about how in Europe they perceive hospitality differently, and I believe France and Germany have a dedicated hospitality professional as part of the government. And here in the UK, there was a big debate not even too long ago, campaigning for a Minister of Hospitality, whether that conversation is still happening, and you know, whether it's going to happen, yes, to be seen. But hopefully this Charter is on the right tracks.
Yeah, I think, you know, the seat at the table is a really big campaign that we all need. You know, our industry is split between two departments at the moment. And, you know, it's proven that it doesn't make sense. You know, Airbnb can open on the 12th of April, but hotels can't. I mean, it's madness. Hotels supported the government right the way through this pandemic. We're looking after, you know, key workers, essential workers, looking after quarantining travellers. We've demonstrated that we're safe, we're proactive. I mean, in our hotel, we've gone cashless, contactless check-in, you know, the whole 9 yards. And the information that the government getting is not strong enough. It's flawed. We are a very diverse industry. We're the 4th largest employer in the whole UK. We need a Ministry of Hospitality, and we will keep campaigning for that until we get heard properly.
Amazing. And just for anyone in our audience wanting to know how they can sign up to the Charter and get involved, what's the next steps for them?
If they go to hotelierscharter.com, there's a sign up page. We're asking general managers to sign up, not brands. I believe that the culture of property starts with the general manager, and it's across the whole of the UK, so sign up. And we've also linked with all the universities and colleges across the UK that do catering and hospitality management. And we're looking for the general manager to sign up and to then commit to working with those colleges, universities and schools in their local area and doing something for the community to raise the profile. Brands have a place, you know, Marriott, the 10 commitments that we've put is a minimum standard for Marriott. Marriott, the brand, can also be part of it and say that they endorse and support all their general managers in advocating the 10 commitments. We've talked to all of the students that are in all of these colleges, and they will be looking for charter hoteliers to start their careers with. And through the Charter, we'll end up communicating properly with UK Hospitality and the hotel associations across the whole of the UK and Northern Ireland to be able to advise government better. Kate Nichols has been intrinsic in setting the commitments with me and a few other hoteliers. So if you want to get on board, have a voice, make a difference, raise the profile, then hotelierscharter.com, just sign up.
It's the place to go, peeps.
Yeah.
And Robert, let's come to you, Vice Chairman of the Institute of Hospitality. You have 13,000 members.
Yeah.
How are you finding new ways to engage with your team?
Well, breaking it down. So my team at my hotel, and picking up on Chetan's point of earlier, I think since COVID started, we've been to a huge degree very, very reactive. And to answer your question, I don't think there's any right or wrong way to go about this, but for me, it's about communication. So whether it's my hotel and my team or the Institute of Hospitality and its near 13,000 members, they're hospitality professionals. And as a hospitality professional, I think you're extrovert by nature. And overnight, we've taken that away. So you don't have the guest interaction, you don't have the interaction with your co-workers. And it's almost like you're in some form of prison in the four walls of your house. And certainly now, when the nights are drawing in, it's colder and it's wetter and it's darker, I think people have more opportunity for issues with mental health or just general mindset. So for me, the key is communication. We talk to our team and we make sure the team know that they can talk to you. I can say since we went back into lockdown, which for us with the tier system in Kent was the 5th of November and we haven't come out yet, I've not had a day where I haven't spoken to someone, and that's ranged from a serious conversation to a picture of their dog in the park, which is great. And again, I'm stealing a lot from Chetan today, actually. I think it's brought the team together, which is lovely. But we have WhatsApp groups, we have Zoom calls, and we've engaged in a lot of training, which has kept the team enthused. It's given them almost like a progression as we've gone through various training subjects. In terms of the Institute of Hospitality, something that the team there does that I'm really proud of is a weekly virtual networking session. And that allows any person from any spectrum of the industry and any level or role within the industry to meet and discuss whatever's on their mind. Now, purposely, there's no agenda to that. So you can come in and the agenda is almost formed by the mood of the room. So the most recent one I attended, actually, we talked about the Hoteliers Charter, which was fantastic. And you really can have an AGM in there with 40 years experience chatting to a first year bar apprentice, and the engagement there has been fantastic. So we've developed this over the course of a year, and with all credit to the executive team at the IOH, it's been incredibly well received, and I think something that as we come out of this will probably remain.
In many ways, you know, we have been apart, but more connected than ever before. I've spoken to people constantly, my phone's always ringing, but it's great. Sometimes you do just need to personal or professional chat. You know, the value of being available and present should not be underestimated. And what would your advice, Robert, to anyone who who's looking to inspire and motivate their team?
I'd say just talk to them. You know, this has been a reactive situation since day one. And I remember this time a year ago, the speculation was COVID would be gone by the summer because it couldn't cope in certain temperatures. And here we are a year later, and it certainly hasn't. So there is no prescriptive guide. I think all of us are making it up as we go along to an extent. The one thought line that should go through this is just communicate with people.
Definitely. I think being transparent and honest and upfront is a winning combination. And Patrick, I'd like to come to you next, please. Looking at brand representation, in many ways, a representative body, to me, embodies the values and the vision of the brand that they are representing. So how can brand representation help to develop and deliver that value?
Yes, thanks, Eloise. And, you know, I launched both of my firms in the midst of COVID. They were both really born out of the scenario from COVID. I think Represent is a bit unique in that I did work for AKA, for example, for 15 years as their global VP of sales. So I have intimate knowledge of their vision, their values, and their brand. But a representation firm is boots on the ground, right? Offering sales and marketing in particular regions that the hotel may not sit within. So for AKA, predominantly within the US, right? Me having relationships and going out and really having that visibility within the UK and Europe and APAC, it's been hugely successful. In addition to actually selling on their behalf and being a true extension of the brand, you know, there's a marketing component that's involved with representation. where we're doing social media campaigns and specific bespoke programs that we're creating and I'm creating with my designer and collaborating with the team. So it really is a team effort. You know, I think some AKA team members are on the call, but I'm working with AKA's leadership team, the teams on the ground, really building those targets and building the trust and loyalty from the clientele in every market globally to that particular brand.
Mm-hmm. And can you tell us about co-opetition? I was actually introduced to this word quite recently. I'd never heard of it before, so forgive me for being new. But how can co-opetition be used to address a business's needs?
Sure. So co-opetition is a phrase that I heard. My background, while it's five-star hospitality, there was a lot of relocation and mobility involved for the temp accommodations. So when I was very young in my career, about 22, 23 years old, a dynamic leader talked about co-opetition. And virtually it's collaboration, right? So all of us and people that are joining the call, there are scenarios that we compete, of course, for business, but we also operate within the same space. So why not collaborate, work, and partner with one another? And I think COVID is a prime example, right? When you talk about AKA, for example, serviced residences, when we hear that April 12th, 60 streets in London are opening for al fresco dining, what better opportunity than to partner with those restaurants, not only from a perspective of sending clientele to those al fresco dining options, but what marketing and PR opportunities are there to kind of collaborate? So I'm a huge advocate. In fact, Chetan, AKA Marylebone, and the Mandeville are about 2 blocks from one another, right? So AKA is super boutique. There's about 9 residences. Obviously, we don't have the capacity that Chetan has. So there's many times where we will send business directly to the Mandeville. We've vetted that option. We understand that they have the same standards that AKA has. And while we sit in our own space, they're the ideal option. So I'm a firm believer that those firms that survive moving forward, they're masters of collaboration. It has to work. And I think that will continue post-COVID as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how, with co-opetition, there's that element of the competition, so to speak. So how do you inspire that shared vision when you're dealing with different teams?
Shared visions within the different teams within, for example, the Mandeville and AKA. I think it's all about education, right? You have to, obviously the conversation would go from managing director or general manager from the top. But I think it's a great opportunity for each brand to really go out and educate that other team on the alternate brand, right? What are their core competencies? What are their visions? And again, they're going to compete in certain scenarios, and every team member is going to understand that. But I really do think it's about educating the teams on site, and for them to understand the value, right? While this is not a one-way street, and AKA is solely not going to send business to the Mandeville, vice versa will occur. So yeah, I really think just educating those teams on the value is incredibly important.
Thanks, Patrick. And I'm going to come to Sean next to talk about the adapters. You've interviewed several leaders from very different backgrounds in this book. And I'm curious to hear how their attitudes and behavior challenge traditional ways of thinking.
Well, thanks for that. And it's been perfect listening to the leaders that have been speaking so sincerely and transparently about their experiences through, you know, a shocking period of business history as well as human history. So I think just for context, the book inspired, or at least informed, the rest of the context of the book, which is really taking an anthropological way. That sounds like a very big word. It's hard to say out loud, but a way of looking about travel, tourism, and hospitality. So it's a wide swath. So of the 22 people we spoke to, they come from all sorts of different disciplines, everything from hotel brand managers to bankers, investment bankers, lawyers, a spectrum of industries, including specialized teams like in Devour Spain and in Spain Revealed, which is a tourism and tour group and outstanding, based in Madrid and around the world. So for that context, we were able to get a good cross-section of hoteliers as well as different operators, different influencers, but equally the ecosystem that is TTH, as we call it. So for context, it's also that we've really gone through the fourth age of change. I mean, we've seen, I think we've all experienced it, but we have really gone through 10 years of change in 10 months. And that is very hard for everybody to absorb. And to your core question, which is what were some of the traits of the leaders that were in that, many of what you heard, from Chetan to Sally to Robert, is that fundamentally this sense of resilience came out. We did follow-up interviews with all of the leaders as well as many more that is in the book and at the back of the book, because one of the big frustrations in books is you do tell the story and then nobody follows up and tells you what happened. It's like watching a good Netflix movie and they ended at 10 minutes before the end. You don't know what happened. We captured what happened. So what happened is this, very kind of rapid fire, some of the core traits. One is the ability to pause and assess and find perspective. That notion of patience, perspective, and persistence was a very common trait in the ones that excelled. The ones that did not excel and had problems were the ones that probably lacked perspective. It was very micro. What do I do to get from here to there tomorrow versus what's going to occur when we get out of this? The tenacity to separate those and kind of, it's like an episode picture, Neo in the Matrix. They hang in suspense and let it all go crazy around them, but they just feel that moment and see where that is. Others started businesses like Jacob Weatherbourne Day. Out of that came Tree Points, which is carbon offsetting. Even though their core business that they started was Stasher, which was places to store your luggage around the world. Some of you know Jacob. Daniel DeLomo, who's the president of Sage Hospitality in the US, and very sobering. And you kind of think through this, very common trends here too, with the notion of don't chase cars, like a dog, any car going by. You got to focus on what you do. I did that when I was in business and running businesses directly. Probably chasing more cars than anything else, but anyway, the notion then of what happens when you come out of it and making sure you've got the team with you during that, which included having a reduction in force for Daniel from over 6,000 to 2,500. Wow. Picture the trauma of that going through an organization, and that was very sobering. The focus on cash, good cash managers to get you from here to there. The looking for opportunities. One of the big pieces that we really focused on was getting our industry, and I mean our industry being a horizontal view, travel, tourism, and hospitality, look over the fence. Each one seems to work in a silo. I'm only in this. I only do tours. I only run hotels. I only run airlines. And, losing sight of the fact that others are doing something that you're not, or you're doing something they're not. This notion of collaboration, coordinated collaboration. And looking over the fence, I can't tell you how much that was a key attribute. And we're certainly encouraging that as we advise companies. And then finally, the ability to compartmentalize and think about these problems in a rational way, probably with a drink in hand oftentimes. But you look at businesses like JetBlue, for instance, and JetBlue started adapting. And I mean adapting versus change. Big difference between change and adaptation. Change for change's sake is not adaptation. That's just marginal evolution just to get through it. But adaptation of their fleet, which they saw the trend in business travel going down. They opened up connections into Gatwick and thus put in their Mint level, which is, call it luxury premium, but you get to buy what you want out of that premium offering. And I think a lot of hotels, particularly, and restaurants need to kind of look at other sectors within travel, tourism, and hospitality to understand what's working. And the final thing I would say is a key learning coming out of this is understanding putting a user a customer-centric attitude in beyond where we've ever been. There's going to be a surge. We predicted in the book, we think it's going to be the roaring 2020s compared to the 1920s. But there's 18 months between here and there, and understanding that the user, the customer, is going to expect something fundamentally different. High quality delivered at home is different than a gourmet meal in a restaurant maybe, and maybe they want less of one and more of more, who knows? But having that user-centric view and being super focused on whatever you thought the customer is, probably won't be.
COVID has definitely upended the landscape as we used to know it. Consumer demands and needs have definitely changed, and be interesting to see what the future traveller is going to look like, even the future hotel. What's that going to look like? And Robert, I'd like to come to you next, please, because COVID redefined what it means to hire and train a team? Oh, Robert, you're on mute, I'm afraid.
Sorry, I knew I'd do that. Zoom call this week. Yes, it has, absolutely. With social distancing, the fact that businesses are shut, interactions are now less socially acceptable to people than they may have been a year ago. It's absolutely changed the landscape. Now, I'm currently recruiting at my hotel, and I've gone through a recruitment process, all of it virtually, and I've made recruitment decisions based on Zoom calls. And I think that's the way of the world, and certainly that's going to be how it is moving forward. I've actually recruited 2 people that haven't joined our business yet because of COVID and the fact we're shut, but when they do, it'll be the first time that I've actually met them. So I think we've all got a culture at the moment that we meet people vicariously through Zoom chats and the like, and we actually forget the fact that we haven't met them 3-dimensionally.
Which seems so antithetical to what hospitality is about. It's so interactive. You can't really tell what I'm doing, but I very much speak with my hands, and I can't. You can't see that. You have to read body language. It's all about hard skill sets, but also soft skill sets too.
It really is. And pre-COVID, I always used to say when someone asked me, how do I feel about virtual interviews? So Skype was the big thing back then. I'd hate them because you can't gauge someone's body language. You can't really make out what they're about, other than some form of almost flat conversation. And I'd almost dismiss it as a way of recruitment, if I'm honest, in favour of actually getting that person in and actually sitting in front of them. It's not been possible now for the best part of a year. And I do think when we come out, this model of virtual interviewing is probably going to stay, at least to some degree. In terms of training, we've done inductions and training with our new starts, again, virtually. So it will stay with us for a while. The challenge, I think, now is, as we're looking at an end date, and June the 21st can't come soon enough, people's mindsets have changed and the culture has changed due to the fact that people have been furloughed and locked in their houses for such a long time. And I think now we need to start, again, virtually, bringing our teams out of that mindset and moving forward. And I think that's going to be a challenge, especially given what we have to work with right now.
And we do have disheartened workers out there, and I'd like to hear your thoughts about what are the future prospects for these people that are so valuable to the industry.
I think, picking up on Sally's comment of earlier, we pre-COVID were one of the biggest contributors to UK PLC, and we're going to be again. People had an experiential society. People would spend their disposable income on the acquisition of memories, not the acquisition of things, and hospitality plays into that perfectly. So I have no doubt in my mind that we won't come back, and we won't come back strong. So there will be opportunities for people out there. Conversely, the world has changed. There will be people out there that will not find it socially acceptable to be 100 on a dance floor or 6 deep at a bar come the Christmas party, because we've now been conditioned this way. So I think there is a lot of opportunity, and I would say to anyone that is disenfranchised out there, the opportunity is coming back, but we have to acknowledge the fact that the world has changed.
And Sally, coming to you next, please, looking at that launch date, we're talking about the world has changed. So how are you preparing for that rebound?
Well, we've been quite lucky because we've stayed open, albeit at 3 and 4% occupancies. But that's enabled me to have the team back. So pretty much all of my team have been into work, even if it's only 2 days a month. But they have been in. They've all had a physical re-induction where they've gone through all the new COVID processes, updated themselves on the new COVID SOPs, the new sort of, work situation, etc. So I'm in a better place than some that have had a closed hotel for a long time and have got to start that again. But yeah, I mean, the workplace has changed. There's no two ways about it. Remote working is now a thing that is current, which wasn't on our agenda before. So in terms of preparing, we're all looking at, okay, let's look at those that have remote worked. What does that look like now? What do we need to change to support? Because some people just literally remote work from one day to the next, don't have the right setups at home, don't have the right seating, and we've got to correct all that. But, we've also, probably all of us have had to make redundancies and shrink our teams and ask for more flexibility. We're now in a position where we're just finishing our final consultations, and then we're going to be doing some pretty serious team building to get people in the right mindset to come back and to work. So there's lots of things. I think every single one of us on this call, everyone that's listening, is now starting that revamp. And it's going to be about communication. I'm also with Robert, there's nothing that changes that is better than a face-to-face communication. But we are going to have to be caring employers and make sure that our team members are ready for that. That they're able and their mental health is in a good place to have that, those conversations. So there's a lot of work to be done from now up until the 17th of May to make sure that, the HR department's conversations have been had, Zoom training if needs be, or on-site preferably, to just learn to get on the tube, get in the place, work through it and understand. And breaking down those barriers that have no doubt built up over the last year or so. So there's lots and lots of things, but it is exciting. There's a lot more positive feeling out there than there ever has been. And I think certainly for my team are very excited for the 17th of May and what that's going to bring. So hopefully that's the same across the UK and indeed the world, that we can all start getting back.
Absolutely. Even from my own conversations, there definitely seems to be a more jump in the way that we chat. You're right. It's more positive now. And you said it is exciting, and I'm sure we all can't wait till we get back to some kind of normalcy. And Chetan, I'd like to come to you next, please. Sally highlighted making sure that staff are mentally prepared too, and there's been a greater emphasis on mental health and well-being. So how would you strike the balance between checking in on your team against the demands of a busy hotel environment? Chetan, you're on mute.
I think I got inspired.
Awesome.
So as I mentioned, during the crisis, we stayed in touch with our team via WhatsApp groups, newsletters, speaking to them, just to make sure that we keep a check on their well-being. What I also did was, instead of having one general action plan for everybody, I tried to divide them into 4 categories. So there were team members who really wanted to work, no matter what. Doesn't matter if they're not being paid extra, or there's no gratuity, no bonus, nothing. They just wanted to work because that makes them happy. Then we had team members who were happy to work, but given a choice, they would stay at home. They enjoyed that comfort. And then there were team members who were happy with the furlough money they were getting and wanted to use this opportunity to spend time with their families and loved ones, the ones with the kids and stuff. And they saw it as an opportunity. And then we also had a few team members who, since they were not working and they were getting furlough money, they wanted to take up another job. So they saw it as an opportunity to kind of make some more money. So then what I did was I made an action plan accordingly, just to make sure that, the team members who wanted to spend more time with their families got enough time to do that. The team members who wanted to work, so whenever there was an opportunity to bring them back to work, we brought them back to work. And it kept them going, and they felt happy to be there. And moving forward, because we opened from 17th of May, the full hotel. The plan is exactly the same, to follow the same categories, so bring people back, because we don't expect to be very busy come the 17th of May. I think it'll be the business will pick up gradually, and the international travel will open more, and people can travel more freely. So what I plan to do is bring the team members who really enjoy working and who really want to be there, bring them back first, then bring the other team members who can fill the gaps. And maybe the team members who are enjoying their time with their families, bring them towards the end. At the same time, we have engagement plans. We've already worked on an action plan where we are organizing team events, kind of picnics and stuff, just to make sure that we, as I said, we celebrate every small success. And just the fact that we can open on 17th of May is something we need to celebrate. And as I said, I think we're going to have a wonderful, wonderful summer.
Yeah, brighter times are definitely ahead. I'm keen believer in it. And definitely one of the traits, I think, of a leader is to keep that positive, strong mindset, the resilient perseverance, all these buzzwords, which big qualities. And speaking of big qualities and big questions, I'm going to come to Patrick to ask, what are the key learnings of 2020 and how can this inform decisions moving forwards?
Wow, Eloise, there's so many learnings. Specifically for me, 2020 was a time of reflection. And I think for everyone on the call, it was really a time of reflection, just to understand, where do we go? We can't predict the future. Robert and Sally talked about, meeting virtually, and what I learned is you can meet with clients virtually, right? You may not be able to meet for coffee or for lunch or for dinner, but you can have meetings and have virtual coffees. So it is very, very possible to have that interaction. The other thing that I think everyone has learned is we've become more global. The day I launched Represent, I presented to 1,000 people in Singapore. Would that have ever happened, prior to COVID? Likely not. And also, we're building collaboration and partnerships globally. So I've done some other sessions where, people are everywhere in the world and we come together for these leadership inspiring sessions, and we have proved it is possible. It's not a perfect world. We all know that. It's been a very challenging time. My approach has always been, the answer is yes. What's the question, right? Like, control the controllables. We all know what's not possible, what is possible, right? So yeah, it's been a huge time of learning, and listen, it's been very difficult, as I said, but I always remain positive and proactive, and actions and behaviors are indicative of results. So if you give up and raise the flag, there's not going to be great results. But if you continue to strive and push, you will have those results.
And I'd like to tie in a question from Chris Mumford here. to Sean. Again, another big question about what is going to be required of contemporary leaders to build an efficient team in today's world. And Chris's question, in the panel's opinion, what are the 3 key traits of leadership necessary in the current environment? So Sean, over to you.
Well, thank you. First of all, I'm sensitive about time, so I'll rattle along here. So thank you to my colleague, Chris from Hokuso and his own business as well, for asking a very poignant question. Probably he can answer that so much better than I can, considering his practice in recruiting great people. So a couple of rapid fire comments. One is what we heard on today, that I hope we all internalize as leaders the massive impact of learning, collaboration, understanding how to use media, and understanding how to communicate. As we just heard about 1,000 people in Singapore. It would be a shame if we let that pass as we move forward and drag that skill set with us. And that's a key factor, I think, in a leader of any level, whether you're a restaurant manager, or you're the CEO of Wyndham, or you're the CEO of Delta Airlines. Things have changed, and we need to learn to pull that into our lexicon of tools rather than let them pass. Why do we need to have staff meetings where everybody's in the office or in the hotel for an executive committee meeting? Are we really task-led or time-led now? And asking ourselves that question, are you going to run your business with time clocks or with task outcomes? And that's a big change that you can embrace. Work from home has done that. One statistic we found was that productivity at home and the average length of day went up 46 minutes at home since people working from the house. Not everybody's able to do that, but certainly I wonder what we can do with our workforces in hotels to break up their days. Do they have to work 5 days? Or do they work 4 days and 3 days off? That's up to you, how you schedule your time. The other part is there's 3 types of people: those who see when they are shown, and those who do not see at all. And it's a question of we're probably a little bit of all it, all rolled in one, all of us. And how do we make that part of our awareness? As Sally said, and I just want to go back to some things that Steve Lowry, I was watching the comments as they were being written and about representation. Representation is just as important as collaboration. In Britain alone, the GDP, as we studied it, for tourism, travel, and hospitality is nearly 8% or higher in some areas of Britain's GDP, yet no pure representation. That's not collaboration. So I think it behooves all of us, not just the hospitality, just the hotel folks or the hospitality folks, the people that move heads into beds or seats on planes need to band together, because this is how an economy works. And that is what, going back to the leadership piece, how are you contributing to your community beyond your own door? Retail is being hit, office space is being hit. And a hotel is a reflection of its community, and hotels are natural places to bring more together. And, you know, I'll finish with, let's bring more together beyond just my corner and make the recovery something memorable as opposed and useful with the key learnings that a lot of people have spoken about today. I think that's the inspiration of a new leader moving forward.
Thank you. And thank you all for your comments, your questions. Unfortunately, we can't get round to all the questions that have been asked in the chat, but I do want to say that all the profiles of our Trailblazers are in the chat. I encourage everyone to connect, to carry on the conversation, because it's in these conversations that we inspire, we motivate, and we map the future. So I've got a few slides that I have to run through before we do close off today. And as I mentioned earlier, we are hosting the Urban Living Festival this summer, a live, in-person, face-to-face event. We are so ready to welcome most, if not all of you there. So please do check it out. As I mentioned, the link is in the chat. And if you would like to hear more, my colleague Katie, her details are here on your screens now. So please do reach out. Be happy to tell you all about what we have planned. And that is us in a nutshell. I'm sure we could have carried on chatting for a very long time. It's an inspiring engaging conversation, and thank you to our Trailblazers for sharing your valued insights. I will be back on Monday the 15th of March for the next webinar on hotel investment and finance. And Boutique Hotel News is all on the social channels now on your screen. I'd love to hear from you. Do connect. But otherwise, have a wonderful day and the rest of the week, and I will see you all very soon. So take care.
Thanks, Eloise.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Eloise. Pleasure.